Hello, Steve.
Steve, you're muted.
You have to unmute, Steve, if you want to say anything to us. Okay. Yep. All right. So we'll call the December 19th, 2022 Planning Board meeting to order. Call to roll call, please.
Chairman Mayhood,
Here.
Mr. Craig. Here. Vice Chairman McCombsky,
Here.
Mr. Engard. Here. Mr. Miller. Here. Mr. Grove. Here. Mr. Upi.
And before we stand, this is our new code enforcement officer, Joe Miller. Coming here to see what we're up to, I guess, tonight. That's great. Feel free to join in with anything as we go along or questions, Joe. So now let's stand and salute the flag, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I guess I should ask, are you certified as a code officer yet, Joe? Or
not?
Okay,
I got a lot of good insight and information from the OVO meeting.
okay.
Training, they're gonna start training in February.
So will you be able to function as a CEO until you're, how does that work? If,
That was my question. That was my question to one of the reps in Albany, that is from Albany, that was there, and they said that, I can, but it's not permitted by New York state law. So I have to make sure, Rich is certified.
Okay.
Yes, 'cause he,
I don't know if he's certified or not. He's the deputy.
deputies are required to.
Oh, okay.
But then it falls on the next highest elected. Chris,
Yep, Christopher. Yeah.
as far as signature.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think
okay.
We'll be all right.
So you can do the work, but somebody official has to actually sign documentation. Okay, great. Well, welcome. Anything you want to tell us about yourself? You live in Canada Ice or?
Yeah, 5 years now.
Oh,
I bought
okay.
A house on Hidden Drive off of Westlake Road, from Naples originally.
Okay,
I had 3 kids, one goes to Honeoye, 2 go to Naples.
okay, good. Was that somebody else trying to get in?
Got another one.
Okay. All right. Yeah, somebody else signing in on Zoom. Karen Henry. Hi, Karen.
Karen, you're muted. I'll ask you to unmute. Is it Karen Sullivan? I see on old
I
business.
don't know. Okay. Well, welcome to the planning board meeting. First privilege of the floor. Is there anything anyone would like to mention that's not on the agenda? We'll have a second opportunity later. Okay.
I guess I'll just mention this, probably everybody knows, but obviously, most of you know.
Turn your mic on. Would you just push the button? There,
Obviously,
okay.
I'm sure most know that Leland Durkee passed away recently. And for any who might not know, there's a service Friday morning at 11 at the church here. This Friday at 11 a.m.
Right, I did not know that. Okay, anything else from anyone right now? All right, let's move on with the agenda then. The approval of the minutes from the November 28th meeting. Any corrections?
I have,
Okay,
we had some discussion about the short-term rental penalties and enforcement. I didn't see that reflected anywhere in the meeting.
oh, yeah, that's right. That fell into the town board meeting review, I think. Anyone remember when that came about?
We
I know.
circled back to it too.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think we talked about it when we talked to the town board meeting review, and then I think I needed a minute to think it through. And
Yeah.
then we also talked about it at the privilege of the floor at the end of the meeting.
okay, so we need to add a privilege of the floor at the end. It just has to be, there was a discussion. On the. What was it? say?
Short-term rentals, penalties and enforcement.
Right, amendment to the short-term rental. Which will include the penalties and the violations and penalties for such violations. Thank you. I had two when you're done there, Holly.
You want mine, Holly?
Well, you can have mine. The first one is in attendees, it was not Matthew Thibodeau, it was Terry Hallett. So both Jess and Terry Hallett were here.
Okay.
And so down on the old business where it says Mr. Thibodeau brought the map, it's Mr. Hallett brought the map.
Good catch.
Over here, preliminary review of the. What is this? Subdivision application. It wasn't, Ms. Sullivan proposes to subdivide approximately instead of annex. Okay. Mrs. Sullivan.
Well, on that same section,
Yes,
preliminary review,
yes,
just above where it says seeker, right in the very middle of the page.
yes.
So that's got my name. It says yes. I remember and then I had a little issue with it. I voted no on that preliminary.
Okay, you did vote no on the preliminary.
Yeah.
That's the first one.
Right.
The second one was the
That was the seeker.
question. No.
No, it wasn't. Did I read it wrong?
Excuse me. The first one
Oh,
was
question, part one.
a motion to continue to review the application. Okay.
Yeah,
and
but-
you voted no on that.
Didn't we have a
And then the
preliminary?
next, and then the next one, there was a motion to grant preliminary approval.
Right,
So that should be a no for you.
yeah.
Okay, so that should be
Yeah.
a no on that for Steve Grosvenor.
That's what I said.
Okay. Anything else?
Are we not doing the Sullivans tonight? Are we not following?
We're gonna update it. So it's on the old business on the agenda.
This preliminary review part, this bothered me after I left. It says there's currently a complaint of excessive vehicles on the lot. But we never substantiated that
Okay,
claim.
we're going to review it tonight. That's why it's on the agenda for tonight.
Okay, but at the time, when we did our minutes, I don't think that we knew that there was any.
We did not.
Complaint.
And so we went through that. Does it say it?
It does, so I think.
Oh,
we should
okay.
strike that. It says currently there is a complaint of excessive vehicles on the lot. I think we should remove that.
Yes.
Well, they did actually acknowledge that they were working with the code enforcement. officer.
Yeah. Yeah, but
So
that
they-
doesn't mean there's a complaint.
It was hearsay at that point.
Well, they
was.
acknowledged it.
And they said that they did have a violation and they were
Oh,
working.
they said that they were
Working.
removing the vehicles, but that doesn't mean that there's a complaint. And one of the things that bothered me so much about that, I should turn this on. One thing that bothered me so much after when I was thinking about that was Mr. Sullivan asked who complained. And we didn't have an answer. The answer was, does it matter? And I think he has a right to know his accuser
Right.
and know if there's really a legitimate complaint. And at the time there wasn't, it was a lot of hearsay.
We
I don't
didn't know.
think that sentence should be in there at all.
I tend to agree that since we didn't have the detail, that it shouldn't have been in that conversation. That's my opinion. We are gonna continue
Oh, yeah.
because we have more information
I thought we did.
now.
But at
So-
the time we didn't, so I think we can take.
What do
that
you,
out.
the rest of you think? We strike that?
I think they acknowledged that there was a complaint. No, we didn't have the formal complaint in front of us, so. However you want to handle it, you can strike it. really, it's a mood issue right now.
Already on the web, that's why.
We need some sort of language,
So we
I
can
think,
correct.
explain why we had a vote to continue. That first vote was to continue with the
Right,
preliminary. review.
right,
So we need some sort of language to explain why we had that
yes,
vote. You know, maybe it isn't that there was a complaint, but there was concern about excessive vehicles on the lot. or something. That a concern was raised or.
But, you know, in
Well-
the sentence that follows, it says, there was discussion among the planning board members on whether the subdivision should be held up due to the property violations. I think if we just struck the. So it says that, there was discussion among planning board members on whether the subdivision should be held up due to property violations. That would address that.
Yeah, I'm
and
in.
that leads into the need for that motion to continue the review.
Exactly.
That's all right.
Everyone agree with that? Just striking that one little word, the, and then
Yeah.
we'll strike the sentence that says currently there's a complaint.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
Currently there's a complaint of excessive vehicles. And then the word the. This is where we,
And then just what about the sentence about why we took the vote? It does say. And it was carried to continue with the preliminary review and that the planning board should not delay the subdivision due to the violation on the Sullivan property. Do we need to make any amendments to that sentence?
oh. We knew there was a violation because Mr. Sullivan acknowledged that there was a violation.
Which sentence was that? Was that the one
The-
following the preliminary review?
The one, the
the
one to
one-
continue with the review, the one that starts Mr. Miller motion, seconded
Oh,
by
okay.
Mr. Yuthi.
Where to continue?
Yeah, because that was a motion that was active, so that has to be in our minutes. But it
Okay,
has to be
so-
enough prior information to
No,
know
we did
why
the
we,
Same thing with that one, strike on, put violations. It was just due to violation of some property.
due to violation. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's good
Can I ask a
reflection.
stupid Question, what does 2022-61 mean?
It's the
motion
61st motion of twenty
Okay,
twenty-two. She,
all right.
she numbers the
61st
motions.
Motion of
I haven't paid
2022. There was
Yep.
60 other motions before that one.
Our secretary.
More motions in this last meeting.
Yeah.
Was there?
Okay. Any other corrections?
That's all I did.
All right, we'll have a motion to approve the minutes with the necessary corrections.
Also move.
I'll second.
Second, all in favor?
All right.
Aye, opposed? Thank you. So now Holly will have to, on this, tonight's draft minutes, she'll have to put the corrections to the previous draft minutes, which are already on the website, so.
What do you mean?
Well, this one unedited is on the web.
Right,
So in tonight's, you'll have to say, when it comes to approval of the minutes, you'll have to say corrections, blah, 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 were made to the November board minutes.
right.
Really? Because 6 months down the road or sometime
Right.
down the road, we go back and want to look at it. We need to have enough information. Okay,
It's just like a one sentence.
No, it's
Oh.
not, it's not that. I just,
Just putting it up.
It's the
I feel
process,
bad
the
that
process.
these
something.
drafts go on the
Oh, I
website.
see. Yeah, the process.
And to me, these were kind of important changes that
Mm.
were made. and-
Yeah.
I agree.
and you won't notice, you won't know that they've been changed unless you read the next
Right.
month's.
And in the meantime, everybody was
Because-
reading.
We've
The
agreed that
minutes that
Eileen
weren't
will
corrected.
put the-
I-
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
So what, when we made the decision to do the meeting minutes like that, it was before we were recording the Zoom meetings. And
Correct.
my understanding is that a Zoom recording is adequate to. Like, we could, I'm
Oh.
pretty sure as long as this gets posted within 2 weeks, we don't need, is it 2 weeks or one?
I don't recall.
Whatever the time period is, we could post the Zoom meeting instead of the draft minutes until we approve it. Is my understanding is that
My understanding is right.
that would be within the,
That would
law.
meet the requirement for open meetings law.
Yeah.
I would certainly go for that, and then we would revert to the corrected minutes would be put on the web, and then we don't have to follow month to month.
Mhm.
Because the recordings are gonna be kept forever.
Yeah.
5 years.
You can turn that mic on.
It's actually a better record than the minutes. and
Yeah,
that's
well, it's-
everything, you know.
Straight from the horse's mouth.
You betcha.
Which means that if we don't have attendees, we still need.
Right, and that's what we're
Oh, yeah.
doing. Yep. We're recording everyone, whether we have an attendee or not. And then they're put on the web. And they're up there. They have their own category. Planning board, maybe planning board Zoom meetings.
So then post the final.
And then we'll just post the final.
minutes like
So
we
we'll,
used
the written minutes will be a month behind like they used to be.
to. Okay.
I think that's.
Did
a
we do
much
that by motion
better
before,
practice.
or do we need to
No, I
just,
think we just.
I think we just made an executive decision. Is
The chair
everyone
was
in
just
favor
fine.
of that?
So this whole meeting, this whole thing is posted then?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so someone can pull it out and watch it for
You can watch
50
the whole
minutes?
thing just for entertainment.
Okay. Okay, didn't know that.
You're hurting for-
It's not like, yeah, I can watch it upon request. Okay, it's just, it's there and.
There.
It's
okay.
there.
I got it.
Fall asleep.
I think that would just be better practice. I think that it's gonna be really hard to track any changes. And like you
Yes.
said, these are important changes.
That's
that we
right.
made. And if you
Okay,
doing it the
But
month
these
after.
minutes stay forever. The Zoom is only 5 years.
right. Okay. Did we vote on, yeah, we voted on the approval. Okay. All right, then let's go into reports, town board meeting. Town board met on December 12th, last Monday. Pretty much regular stuff in terms of communications, et cetera. Highway department's been busy. That was kind of in between snow. They were doing trimming trees down on Tibbles Road. They actually were out patching potholes in the road, cleaning debris and trees after the wind events that a couple of weeks before that. They'd been out 12 times on plow runs since the November meeting. And they bought 71 tons of salt, used up the money in the 2022 budget for salt purchases. Honeoye Lake Shore Water Task Force, the alum treatment on Honeoye Lake was completed November 18th. Terry Gronwell explained that this type of treatment will not eliminate all alum or all algae blooms, all types of algae, but it will eliminate the most prevalent kind that shows up in Honeoye Lake. Basically, they were kind of a disclaimer, you know, you see algae in front of your place, it's not because not necessarily because it wasn't treated with alum, it may not be the right kind of algae to have been affected by the alum. Water operations going pretty good. This kind of blows my mind. They're losing about 2,500 gallons of water monthly. It's unaccounted for. Now, some of it is, and so it's unpaid for by residents. Some of it is used for flushes that are done on a routine basis. This 2,500 gallon represents about 5% of the volume for our town. And the people that run Monroe County Water say that 10% is up to 10% is an acceptable loss. And if it's 10% or less, they don't bother investigating and finding out. And so this cost of this lost water is going against the water district budget, not coming out of the general town fund. Sounds like a lot of water to me, but
All the users end up paying for it.
yeah, eventually.
5% is actually really good.
Is it really?
2,500 isn't that much water. If they're flushing, that's not that much water.
Okay. Other than that, let's see, those are the key things I. The HVAC for the town hall, they're working on, they had drilled the wells. And they've worked on it this past week to do more work. They're looking at possibly next week. Well, as of the writing of the minutes, they were looking at next week as possibly the earliest they could get that system up and running. Other than that, it's pretty normal setting up the organizational meeting for the town, the January town board meeting. Other rights of way that have to be done every year for maintenance. Paul was reappointed to the planning board. His term was up this December 31st. They got him for 7 more years.
Be alive.
Thank you, Paul, for volunteering to stay on. Other resolutions, things that they have to do using Canandaigua National Bank as the formal agent for the town. Couple of resolutions, one to buy 2 Ford trucks, one F-250 and one F-550. They approved those. Highway superintendent said there's no guarantee on the F-550 being delivered, being available. That's what he was told by the manufacturer. The F-250 apparently is. Resolution reappointment to the zoning board of appeals for Christine Singer, 5-year term. And that's pretty much it. They did remind that the holiday, the Christmas luncheon is this Wednesday, December 21st at 12 o'clock. If you come, just bring a dish to pass. Questions? All right. County Planning Board, Steve, anything?
Oh, we had our meeting just last Wednesday night, December 14th. And again, nothing of interest to report, nothing from any local towns that have joined us. Really, it's not that I don't feel like talking about anything, but it's just nothing of interest that
Okay,
anyone would care about to hear.
all right, thank you. Zoning Board, they didn't have any new minutes on the website, so I don't know. I don't know if they met even. I know they have, you know, there's some litigation that the town's being sued by the people down on Pickerel Point. That they've been embroiled with for
Oh, I heard that.
building without a permit. So the town is being sued by those people. Code enforcement included the monthly report of permits, violations. And they started to include permit summary for short-term rentals. The summary, so that's going to be coming out monthly as well. Yeah, there are a lot either been issued or applied for, and then Jim is working on them and Rich are working on them, I know, so. Steve Smith is still concerned that there are a lot of short-term rentals out there that people are just ignoring. And I mentioned that we had discussed sending out another postcard. The town board had discussed sending out another postcard, and I reviewed our input to that it would kind of be useless to send it out until we get the regulations updated. And so they were okay with that.
This is a lot of people stepping up though. I think.
Oh, it is,
It's pretty
really.
good.
Yeah, I don't know how many there
Getting
are.
some
Well,
response.
there are
We don't usually see a lot of activity around.
total of what? 15 to date as of November 7th, so,
That's good.
okay. Anything you want to add, Joe?
Just that we've got 10 more.
And more applications? Okay.
Wow.
Wow, that's good.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Have you had any communication from anybody that's been applying, positive, negative?
Positive, I think, so far. I've done 2 since
Okay.
I started, so. They like the checklist, they like having the checklist, what they can do before we get there.
Oh, good. Good. Okay, so we'll move to old business. We've already talked a little bit about the Sullivan subdivision application. We have a letter from the town code enforcement officer that I'm going to pass out to you. And as we discussed, I brought this up to the code enforcement officer asking for the clarification, since we didn't know. And he reviewed the code. And he put together a packet of photos, past violations with dates, commentary. And from his standpoint, he does not have a workable agreement with the Sullivans to resolve this issue, so he's telling them and us. We can just read it.
Yeah, I see that.
Did he send you a copy of this, Karen?
Karen, you're still muted. I'm gonna ask you to unmute again if you'd like to make any comments.
Okay. Well, this is to the planning board, town of Candidice, from the code enforcement officer. It's my recommendation that no subdivision be permitted to go forward at 6633 County Road 37. Owners Lee and Karen Sullivan are in violation of town and state building codes and are reluctant to comply. A subdivision should not be approved until the violations are corrected. So his comment was that, you know, when they're able to work out a plan that's acceptable to the code enforcement officer, a path forward in terms of cleaning up and he does cite 2 sections in the subdivision code and 1 section in the zoning code in the packet, if you want to see what those are. So
He's citing violations. Is that-
he's citing code that his decision is based on.
Okay,
The primary one I saw was, let's see, 108.13B. It's the primary one in your code book. Chapter 108, section 13B. He also he cited chapter 108, section 2 as well. I read through them, but the one that seemed to me to be the one that he's primarily using as the basis is 13B. Basically, he's saying what he said in the letter, you know, that's the section of the code that he's referring to base his letter of saying we should not do any subdividing of this property at this point in time.
13B.
108.13B, section 13B. It's on page 108-6.
Yeah,
You don't have it?
yeah, I think.
I do, but it looked like it was talking about buildings.
Well, if you read through there, he says, the section says, in the kind of in the middle, there's it's a long sentence, but the code enforcement officer of the town, in addition to any other remedies, may institute any appropriate action or proceeding to prevent such unlawful erection, construction, reconstruction, alteration, conversion, maintenance, use, or division of land. So subdividing is in that list, and that's what he's using.
Yep.
So, you know, hopefully, you know, something can be worked out between Karen Sullivan, the applicant, and the code enforcement officer. And when that happens, we will revive the subdivision application and go from there.
Was it just, was the application just like for Karen? Because I know there was a gentleman with her.
That was her husband. The application was in her name.
Okay, so it's just her name. Okay,
She's the one that
Wasn't
made,
both.
she put her name on the
I
application.
guess, okay.
We have a resolution to put this on hold.
Well, we don't need, well, I mean, we have gotten to that point of the seeker review. We did the preliminary approval. we did the seeker, the next step would be we would need approval. If you want to put a
But
motion.
isn't there a
to-
time frame in that from preliminary to final? If you don't grant a final within a certain period of time, then the application is like null and void.
It's
back to step-
recommended in our code, it's recommended the final approval be given within 6 months of the preliminary approval.
Oh, 6
But
months, okay,
it's not a must,
It's
it's a
recommended.
recommendation.
I see.
So it's basically, if it comes up close to 6 months. Myself or somebody should notify and say, where do we stand on this? Your application. Is coming up for review again. So I don't know if we need to
No, I guess we don't.
formally
We
put it
just
on
follow
hold
forward.
since we're at a hold.
Yeah.
In our process.
I just have a question.
Yeah, Dwight.
They mentioned, or she mentioned that who filed the complaint. Is that,
Well, the code enforcement officer would answer that question.
Oh.
He has,
Yeah, so they file a complaint with him as they have to sign it.
right,
He knows who's.
right. He
getting-
knows.
I can answer that question right now if you'd like.
Oh, yes,
There you are.
Steve, thank you. You were on mute.
I'm here.
Okay,
I don't need a complaint to file a violation. Just upon driving down the road and observing. I don't need a formal complaint. All I need is observation that a violation has taken place.
okay.
But there
That's
was a
the code.
complaint, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Pardon?
Steve Smith, in the packet he's given to us, he included a violation number 21-0023. So that was in July of 2022. There was another violation April 26th of 2022. So he has the violations.
I was asking about the complaint.
Oh. The
He's the
complaint.
complaint.
I guess Steve.
Yeah, I understand he's a complainant, but there was supposedly a complaint initially. Right, and that's what
I don't-
Mr. Sullivan was
That's-
asking last week was who the complainant was.
And that was
Um,
Steve.
that would've-
Well, I don't know that, but
Well,
He just said.
he just answered
I
that.
understand that he can go down and he can act on a violation. He's a code enforcement officer. That's what he does. I'm wondering who the complainant is, because that's what Mr. Sullivan asked, and he didn't get an answer to it.
Okay. Here's the,
So, Steve, who initiated this? You?
is your mic turned on? Steve Smith,
Yeah,
did you hear the question?
I heard part of it. And like I said, I don't need a formal complaint to send a violation. If I observe a violation going on, I can send a violation.
Yes. We acknowledge that.
Okay,
In this case, was it you who started this process?
that I'd have to open up my packet and make sure of. Did I send you a complaint form from anybody?
Well, I'm looking for it. You have violation notices through here.
I'd have to look through my folder. Obviously, I don't have my folder with me, but
Yeah.
I believe I think that's immaterial because I can
Well,
send a violation.
But-
if I observe that there's a violation happening.
Yeah.
Steve, that wasn't the question we were pondering. It was
Right.
last month. Mr. Sullivan was told that there was a complaint, from a complainant, and he just asked who it was.
Do you have he had a complaint, huh? Well, if he said he had a complaint, I
No.
want to.
no, no, no.
No, we,
I brought up saying, I heard there was a complaint. I didn't
You
say-
heard,
Right.
I
heard,
heard there
okay.
was a complaint or a violation on the property.
well,
And his response was, who complained?
Yeah.
But I didn't actually say, I knew there was a complaint.
Yeah, the reason that comes up, Steve, is just because he was under the impression that there was a complainant and a complaint filed against him, and he asked about it.
Yeah.
And so, in transparency of government and everything, if there's a complainant, he has the right to know who that person is.
Right.
So
I
that's why
agree.
that came up. We understand that you can
Yeah,
do a
right.
violation, absolutely. But we had a question of, if there was a complainant and who it was.
Okay, that I would have to see if I actually have a formal complaint back in the back of my folder, but I'm not sure of that at this time.
Okay.
Not
And
that
we,
it's,
we just wanted to feed that back to the Sullivans, you know.
sure,
They can also talk to Steve and ask.
Right,
that.
and
They
in
should be.
fact, you know, Karen, I talked to you after the meeting and recommended that you get a hold of Steve Smith to get any more details, so.
Yep, that was our only question.
Okay,
Steve.
so,
Thank you for all the
Thank you,
information.
Steve Smith, for that. So Karen, is there anything more from your end?
I don't think that's Karen Sullivan.
Sure.
Karen is muted. I asked
Oh.
a couple times if she wanted to unmute. I don't know if she's able to.
Oh, okay,
If you would like, you can also put any comments into the chat. I do have that open. So if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat or unmute. You certainly don't have.
right,
to.
you don't have to. And if you're not Karen Sullivan, I
Our-
apologize.
Karen Henry, that's good.
Our microphone's dead. So hopefully she heard that.
Okay, so in the minutes, we'll just comment that, you know, planning board did receive a letter of explanation from the code enforcement officer.
Which was great.
Yes.
Right.
And he, like I said, he
Kinda
puts,
It's not only that, but he cited the sections of law and.
yeah,
everything.
he cited, also, he cited actually also chapter 120 regarding junkyards. that they're
Oh, yeah?
Prohibited, yeah.
Know what that section is?
Yeah,
The page number maybe?
120-71, it's a prohibited use. And one of them is automobile graveyard and junkyard. They're two different ones, so, you know, he's thinking in his view, this qualifies as a automobile graveyard, so it's prohibited use anyway.
And
Oh, I think it's an absolute violation. That
Right.
I don't doubt.
yeah, state property code is only allowed one.
And that's why he references that in his letter. It violates state.
When does the 6 month expire?
6 months from the date of the preliminary approval, which would have been our November 29th, 28th.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was like 5 months.
And again, it's kind of, like I said, it's not a requirement, but it's the recommendation that final be acted upon. It's in our code.
So if can they request an extension? to that
Yes,
6 months?
Yes,
But they would need to.
they would need to request an extension. So, you know, we'll just keep in contact with Joe, you know, about any, again, you know, to satisfy code enforcement officer, that's the office, that things are going to progress, then they'll let us know, and then when we can pick up this application and continue the review.
You know, I like how that was handled. I
Yeah.
was worried because we were looking at stalling the process because of the violation, which I don't think we are entitled to do, have the power to do. But I'm
And that's
glad
why-
that there's a mechanism because I wasn't really sure.
That's
Now
why
I am, so
I
I
said
feel
I
better
would
about
speak to Steve Smith after the meeting because of the questions about it. And I did, and Steve got back with the action.
So for future reference, should we, when we get a subdivision application, does the code enforcement officer get a copy of that or know? that
Well,
that's in
they
process?
had not been getting them, but yes, they will be
Okay.
getting a packet
So
of
you would-
our information.
You would look at.
It
that.
may be the last minute, Joe, you know, Holly sometimes doesn't get them out until Thursday or so, and you're not even here on
Oh,
Monday,
they
so.
don't have time to review it to know if there's a violation. or not.
Yeah, right.
So that's you know, because
Well,
we
we
don't,
do get the list from them of violations.
Yeah, but we don't keep it updated. I mean, I don't,
Yeah, if there's an old one, it wouldn't show unless we went through all
Right,
of our
right.
violations.
that's a good point, some kind of a mechanism to verify, and I was thinking, you know, things like our taxes paid, you know, any of those kinds of things, you
Mm.
know, on a property before we act on a subdivision, so
And you just went. through
maybe
a whole
somebody
bunch
can
of one thing.
give that some
Mm.
thought, and come up
Right.
with a, you
well, it'd
know,
be nice to have something
So-
in the code that directs us. I mean, unpaid taxes, I don't know if that affects it or not, but violations, I mean, yes, it's in there, but.
It's a good, I think it's a good form of incentive without issuing violations.
Well,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I can't complete. an
May I,
application.
may I speak? May I speak?
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
yes, Steve.
Well, I think whenever you have a subdivision coming up or any type of thing coming for the planning board, I think someone should inquire to the code enforcement office if there's any uh, issues going on. Because we send you a violation report every day. Of course, I don't expect you to, look at that and keep track of it and record it. But I'm just saying, anytime there is issue coming up before the planning board, they should contact the code enforcement office and let us know property, tax back number and everything. And then go forward from there.
Yeah, that's just what we were discussing,
Yep.
Steve. We're trying to figure out a mechanism to do exactly that, because sometimes these applications kind of come in at the last minute. And there's not enough time for everybody to get on the same page.
Well,
But
but
for the
Well-
most part, though, an application, it comes in twice for 2 months. So after, after the preliminary hearing, he would be notified that there is an application. So it would have a month to keep it from progressing to a final.
It would not be a big deal, since I'm the one that puts the chairman, whoever that is, puts the agenda together, to just shoot Joe a note and say, we got a subdivision application or site plan application for this property, and are there any concerns? Yeah, I can do that.
I like that.
Easily.
and people meet with you for a week. or
I
two
normally
before.
meet,
You know what's-
Paul's been coming in,
Right,
or,
you know what's going on.
different of you come in at the first informal meeting when we sit down and review the applications. That would be the point in time to contact.
And also say to the applicant.
I can ask them.
Are there any
Uh,
outstanding, we're gonna check with code enforcement, do you wanna?
Maybe that should be a checkbox on our actual applications. Do you have any open violations with this property?
Hmm.
I like that idea, and they don't even bring it in front of you guys.
Well, that's the point. If there's a violation, it would be best if they took care of that violation before we even looked at the first review of it.
Sure. But if they have one open and they're trying to get through an application or something and have questions there, well, that's gonna add some transparency and make them think about addressing that, and if it's not addressed on the application, we would see that and wonder why.
And back on this application at the time when we were reviewing it, it was brought up that perhaps would it be prudent to maybe delay it for 30 days so we could ask questions to see what the status and revisit it later, but
Well-
that was kind of shot down.
Well, we're required to review an application 60 days after the date of receiving the application. If we don't, it automatically gets approved. That's in the code. So we do have 60 days,
I'm never in favor of stalling. an
but I don't really want to
application for
stall
any
on
reason.
people unless there's a.
I just
Yeah,
brought up,
Jesus.
there was some discussion, okay, there was an alternative,
Yeah,
Yeah, but we got to the point.
Well, we got to
where
the,
we wanna be.
yeah,
right.
I think,
That's, I'm not saying we should have, I'm just saying there was some discussion on it, so there was an option brought out.
I think the question was, is that enough of a reason?
Right.
To delay an application? And thank you to Steve for finding language in the code where it does say
Yes.
that. So
Yeah, I
now
think it
we
worked.
do know that going,
Notified if there is a violation.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah,
if-
it works
if you're
really good.
able, when you get an application to send, I'm sorry, is it Joe or Jim?
Joe,
Joe, to send Joe an email and say.
Yeah.
Anything I should be aware of at this
Yeah.
property.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Thank you for following up on that.
oh, you're welcome. And thanks Steve Smith. He's the one that put it together and,
Yeah.
formalized it. Did you, Steve Smith, did you happen to send a letter to the Sullivans? Or
No,
just, okay,
no, actually, I went up with the troopers. Joe and I went up there, what was it, Thursday, Joe?
Yeah, Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday, I called the sheriff's office in Ontario.
Oh,
Asked for an escort up to this property because I was threatened the last time I was up there. And Rich was with me then. And so I decided to call the sheriff's office and have an escort up there this time. And Joe and I and the state trooper showed up. And so I could go around the property feeling a little safer.
Okay,
And I took for the recent pictures for the planning board there.
yeah, I saw, I can share this packet with anybody that wants to look at it. You've got photos
Yeah.
and copies of preliminary
Yeah.
previous violation requests and orders. And after getting this from Steve, I called the Sullivans on the phone to inform them because I wanted to let them know as soon as I could. And they didn't answer, so I just left the message and I never heard anything back. So perhaps we should send a copy of this by mail to Karen Sullivan, who's the applicant.
So Karen Henry did let us know in the chat that she is not Karen Sullivan.
Oh.
She said sorry.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Karen.
sorry.
thanks for joining us, Karen. If you're interested in planning, we do have an alternate position available.
That's right. So,
That's cross sell.
I didn't realize that there was anything going on that there was any kind of hostility.
well, he's documented it quite
Oh, really?
thoroughly in this packet.
Oh, boy.
So,
Yeah, I think he said he felt threatened
Oh, yeah.
when he.
right, so, okay,
Do you want us to send that whole packet or just each letter?
Just the letter.
I think just
Yeah.
the letter, and
Yeah.
it should come from your office, just, just a copy
Right.
of it and just mail it, certified mail, and then they,
Yeah.
because I've verbally spoken with him, obviously Steve and Rich spoke with them, and this will make certain that if we send it, you send it certified, that they have received it.
Yes, I'd like to see that packet. at
Yeah,
some
I'd like
Yep.
to see it too.
Well,
Just
let's
to
not do it
compare to
now.
my
No,
neighbor.
no. It's all fun. I'd like to know what's
But
going on.
Yeah.
at the end of this meeting, anybody that wants to look it over,
Okay,
Steve, Karen did say something else. Could you read
I'd like
it?
to see it for
Somebody, I'm sorry, I can't read it.
another comment?
Sorry for the confusion.
Yes.
Oh, you're welcome.
She said.
Oh.
You're welcome.
Okay, all right, so if Joe, your office will send a copy of that letter off to the Sullivans. We'll wait to hear back and we'll be in communication and
I'd like to see
something-
it just before I leave tonight.
positive. What's that?
I'd like to just see that before I
Yeah,
leave.
when we
Yeah.
adjourn this,
Yeah,
I
afterwards.
mean, you can look at
After.
this is not a violation of.
Right,
of
I just want to see some,
confidential,
I want to
Anybody that
compare
wants
it.
to stay
to
at the
another
meeting, look
property.
at it, you're certainly welcome.
Yeah.
I'm
Again.
always interested when law enforcement.
Yeah, you are.
Okay.
Right, right.
Back to the agenda, there was an old business, I didn't put it on there because I forgot about it, but you recall the Shaw site plan application that we reviewed last meeting. We left that thinking that it may have to go to the county planning.
Oh, that's
I did contact Linda Phillip, and her comment was that it's a single family residence. No variances were requested. It met all of our current codes, town codes, so the county would not review those kinds of applications. So I sent an email back to the Shaws and the engineer with our planning board email. I've never heard anything back from them, so I'll probably try to contact them again. Sometimes when people receive emails from planning.org, it goes into their spam folder. That's happened. So I will try to contact them and perhaps we'll get them on the January agenda because we did pretty much approve everything, and so
Right.
if there's no need for county planning input, we'll probably just be able to, he'll have the updated map with those corrections that we had talked about during the review. And we'll finish that up.
Why was there a question that it had to go to county?
It's on a county road, County Road 37.
Oh, no, near if it's near the border of the county, the line the end of the county.
And there was also a
But
little
Steve
a
was
question
talking about
regarding adjoining state property and the watershed land.
Oh.
Down at the bottom. So it was just a question. We thought we'd better cover our bases.
Yeah,
So we thought we'll just ask first, should we, shouldn't we? Because she makes the
Wouldn't hurt to
final,
ask, right?
she makes the
That's right.
determination.
I wanted to make sure we didn't miss it.
Right.
You know, we.
No, I just
we-
wondered-
Especially with the state
That's
land, that,
county roads.
you
So
know.
And I did have a question, and since we have both code enforcement officers here about the house number, because they were saying they were going to use the mailing address for the other house on the property. And I just was curious, since it's a second primary residence on this property, and there's a driveway on County Road 37 and one down on the Lake Road. Like if emergency services
Yeah.
needed to be called, fire, ambulance, I assume it gets a separate address, even though it's one property.
You're probably not familiar with it. They own property that runs on Canada Lake Road on the west and all the way up the hill to County Road 37. This is a residence on Lake Road with an address. But from that address, you can't access the new house. The only access is from the other road. So you're gonna have to figure out somehow to identify.
Then I would say there has to be an address.
And so it brings up the question, you have two addresses for a single tax map. I mean, we've had places on the lake where we've had two house numbers on the same tax map.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we had two different road names on a tax map. So that's something that's coming down the pike here pretty soon and maybe.
I wonder, how are the numbers on the, you remember down by the lake, we just subdivided the property, 2 houses. They had 2 different addresses.
Yeah, it
May I
was,
go-
it was
may I
two
go-
different house numbers, but on the same street. It didn't have a different street name.
Okay.
That was Cratsley's, Steve.
They did have different streets. They were little side roads. And we didn't do final approval for that yet.
Oh, no, we're waiting for a survey map.
Yep. There was, because the,
Well, the
supposedly
the
utilities
frontage,
came
yeah,
from each side.
the
There was a
utilities
driveway and utilities from
and
each
the
side.
frontage was on two different roads, but I thought the mailing address was a single. I don't know.
I just remembered that.
Okay.
That's all.
So that's a question that'll have to be raised, answered about the Shaw property.
I think Steve was gonna say something.
I'm sorry, Steve Smith.
yeah.
did I-
Well, I think you're aware of it, but you're only allowed one single residence on a property.
That's why we're doing a site plan.
I got you, buddy. Okay.
And
Sounds
when
good.
Because it's a large enough property that it could be subdivided in the future. Doesn't
Sure.
have to be, but it could be, and it meets that code requirement. So that's why we're doing a site plan.
Right.
the only
'Cause I just wasn't sure if there was a subdivision already there, if they're under the same tax map.
No, they don't want to subdivide. They want to keep the single property.
Gotcha.
Yep. Anything else on the Shaws? Okay, thanks. And thank you, Steve Smith and Joe
Yeah.
for the work on the Sullivan. Okay, new business, fill out vouchers, 2 meetings, $40 a meeting, sign it, fill it out, give it to me before you leave.
What is it, 40 a meeting?
40 a meeting this year.
We got 2, that's for this month.
That's
and last
for,
month?
yeah, two meetings that we didn't get paid for yet, and everyone was at all of the meetings, so. Next year it goes up to 45, I think,
Ooh,
another $5.
does the mileage go up?
They haven't set the mileage, they'll set it,
July 1st. So they go by the federal rate, right?
No.
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 No,
Town
it's go by
sets,
anything.
town sets the town rate at their January
It's
meeting,
lower than-
it's lower, they haven't raised it for 2 or 3 years.
The federal rate just went up in
Yeah.
July.
Right. Right, we're doing taxes and the the mileage rates changed. Okay, vouchers, make sure you get it in. I'm assuming. Well, I know for certain that everyone except the 2 Steves have 4 hours of training. Did you have 4 hours, Steve Grote?
Yeah,
Did
but that was a
Oh, that's
question
right,
I
you
was
got-
gonna bring that up under privilege of the
Oh,
floor.
okay.
I had a question, but I'll
Okay.
bring it up then.
All right,
I was actually gonna start mine and the geothermal guys dug up our fiber optic cable.
and you got that website,
I did, thank you.
nypf.org,
Thank you very
and then I
much.
sent you another one
I
today.
got both of them,
that-
thanks.
That's a county is putting out another one. that's
Yeah, several days right around Christmas.
For 2022, so you gotta get your 4 in there.
Yeah, I know,
Or you're not gonna get
but I
paid.
usually wait till like.
You're not gonna get
31st.
paid. Okay, so vouchers takes care of that. Chairperson and vice chairperson for 2023. Anyone want to sit in this seat?
I'll make the motion when we. Ed is chairman.
That- The question is, do you?
I'm still breathing, so
I know, but
You wanna
it's,
switch for a while?
I'd be happy to
You wanna
switch.
give Ted a break and get a chair?
Me?
Well,
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought you were offering.
No, I'm offering.
I
for
took
you
his
to do it.
place.
No, you
I
sure?
think Ted does a
You'd
great
be a good
job.
chairman. I always thought that we should just mix it up sometimes, because I remember when I became the chairman years ago, how fast I came up to speed, I learned so
Well,
much.
that's the
so
way I
fast.
learned it.
You do, you learn by
Well-
fire. And so I always thought that, planning board members should take a shot at that. Just to make a strong board. That's the only reason. Not because they're not doing a
Hmm.
fantastic job.
1 year.
So every year.
Yeah, yep,
yeah,
exactly. So you just try the hot seat for a year,
we just,
There's a,
Len Wildman at the county, he's been the chair for, I want to say, I think 3 or 4 years, and then he just announced last week that I think it's time, we need some turnover, and so he's requesting to step down, but fortunately, our vice chair, Paul, he's represents the city of Canandaigua. He's a professor at Hobart there, good, nice guy. So sounds like he's willing, if nominated, that he would step up.
You're not gonna do it?
Oh, Jesus, yeah. I tell you, I don't know what my excuses, I don't know what my excuses were before, but after last year, I'd say, I'm happy just sitting here,
okay, we have a motion.
you know.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second.
White, any other discussion? Any other volunteers? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Ed abstained.
Yes,
Do I have to
and
abstain?
yeah,
I was
it was a
gonna say,
single
yeah.
motion, so. Kate
Oh,
will-
it's a single motion?
Kate
We
will-
still have a quorum.
Oh,
We still have a
okay.
quorum.
You don't have to, it's just people like this weird voting for
Yeah.
yourself, that's all.
I voted for half of that resolution.
Half of it,
There you
yeah.
go.
Okay, privilege of the floor. I included a letter from National Grid. Just for your information, it's going to be starting in the spring, I guess, where they're going to be putting up some new meters. Read it if you want, throw it out if you want. Mention the Christmas party. On the table, when you came in, I put a copy of the 2023 membership. Check out your information, make sure it's correct, your name, email, and phone number. And if the phone number listed for you, you're not gonna answer that, give us another phone number that you will answer. Please. And I put the meeting dates on the right, so it's the 4th Monday of every month except December this year. That's the only one that's not a 4th. And we'll put this under the privilege of the floor. The short-term rental
Yeah,
regulation
what this is?
update, that's what this is on the table. That
so I looked at what other towns had and everything, but we don't have a penalty part. And then I looked at our town code and I looked under solid waste and basically. E and E are. penalties
Just
for solid
copies?
waste. So it's just a copy, and then, but I added the provision at some point, and I can't remember where I found it. In A, it just said, we'd like voluntary compliance and, we'll work with you, but violators will be dealt with.
and then it spells out the
And
violation
As far as what
penalty.
penalties are, I was kind of surprised on the imprisonment, but it's in our town code now. So I kind of left those bold, it's up to the town board what they want to do. But it's,
So these are the penalties associated with a violation of solid waste removal.
yeah,
So it's exactly,
Waste.
so we just copied that and said, let's use that as a starting point, as a recommendation.
and then it does say not more than, because I think Steve Engard was saying, leave it open.
Mhm.
Judicial. The judge can
Yeah.
decide,
And that's the way this is written then,
yeah, they do find it not more than.
not more than,
But that's each day. in
that's per
violation.
day, yeah.
But it also has something about, you know, the town can civilly go after it. I think the more important thing on the civil part is that they ignore part B. And as Steve said, the courts are kind of jumbled up right now on these type of things, right?
Well,
For enforcement.
if you get to a violation point where you have, you know, somebody has pled, you know, there's a fine associated with it and they don't pay, you can convert that to civil. You can
Right.
do that, but
But I thought the more important thing, part C was the town could get an injunction. And I
Right.
think an injunction very often, then you're in violation of a court order. That's more serious, can be a more serious.
can be, still the initial compliance is a problem if the people just flat out don't respond, that's the problem. Once they respond, yeah, then you can move forward with things.
So,
But it still has to be there irregardless, we still have to have the same policy.
I mean, the other. I mean, in some towns are like $5,000 and there's some serious. I
Yeah,
mean, this is serious too, but
right, this is a per day fine, right?
yeah, it's worded, and I was kind of surprised when I came up with solid waste.
Well, the per day thing, the way the judges are interpreting that in the court is, yes, it can be per day, but there still has to be a violation filed for each of those days.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Correct.
that's what keeps it from being some ridiculous amounts of money.
Right. But this at least
So-
gives the thing. Whether or not it's important.
It's gotta be there.
Joe,
Yeah.
you probably didn't get one of these. Steve, you didn't get one either. This is hot off the press. It's a suggestion to amend the short-term.
I'll email Steve, email your office a copy.
Yeah, you wanna give it a month for everybody to look
Yeah.
at it?
Let's, look at it, improve upon it. And at our January meeting, we'll finalize submission, code amendment to the town board, whatever we come up with. Right.
May I speak?
Yeah,
Certainly, Steve.
Well, I think, being under solid waste is not gonna carry any weight at all because it's not solid waste. What it is, you have a violation of a C of O. You have no certificate of occupancy for these units, and that's what it has to be put under as far as a heading,
now, Steve.
that you need a C of O or an order to operate to continue on with these rentals that, I mean, the enforcement could be, you could actually condemn these little places, or these little rentals.
Yeah. Steve?
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with solid waste. I pulled the penalties
Oh,
from
the
solid
penalties.
waste, copied that and pasted into this. And this will be is intended to be at the end of the short-term rental regulation.
Right.
No, that's fine, Birch. I really like that because that's in quite a few of the different codes, that's the same penalties.
Okay,
so it's
Violations for a lot of
consistent,
things,
yeah.
yeah.
All right.
So that's why I liked it, because it's consistent with the other violations for other regulations.
Oh, I totally agree.
Well, so Birch will email you the CEOs. Got any feedback for us before our next meeting, and you all look at it?
Now, another question,
I
should
could-
I email a copy to the town board members and Christopher? Because he was talking about, he wanted to run it through the
the attorney.
attorney and, you know, just to get everyone.
Why don't I would suggest we send it to Christopher and say, here's our draft, still working on it, but you might want to have town attorney take a quick.
Yeah,
look
and
at it.
Kate probably does have a copy of this. And Caitlin brought up the point is, you know, and I don't know, but technically, instead of. What was your point? Instead of fine.
No, you were right. Originally, when I was thinking about it, I suggested putting it on the fee schedule and not in the code. Because then you have a little bit more flexibility if you want to change it. But Bert, you were right, that it's a penalty, it's not a fee, that it really should go.
Right.
And if this is consistent with the other penalties within the code, then I think that was a moot point. But I did notice that on the fee schedule, and I'm not sure who's in charge of updating it, they application fee for the short-term rentals is not on any of the fee schedules. I did happen to review those earlier today.
Okay,
Okay,
I have one
So,
other.
yeah.
that was to the- Or a.
Any-
I
any
got
questions
two.
or discussion?
Well,
about
not on
this?
this, no.
Okay,
I was just wondering if we wanted to go as far as sending it to Christopher and suggesting it go to the attorney and everything before the board has looked it over. And decided to forward it.
that's
I
right.
don't know how urgent this is. I don't want to hold things up either.
Well, at some point, it's gonna become necessary to have it there as a leverage, point of leverage, but
But if the
I
planning
don't know
board
that
is
it's-
gonna send
yeah.
a document forward,
You want me to send him a copy or not yet?
I would say, I would agree with Steve. I think we should hold off, wait until,
Okay.
wait until we meet, because the attorney will look at it quickly and.
Yeah.
And she's pretty quick on those things, so we'll leave it for all of you to review it.
thank you.
You can look at any other part of the code if you want, but again, you lifted it and put it in here, consistent with the other violations. But anything else that comes to mind around violations enforcement. And at our January meeting, hopefully we'll be able to, we'll take any input from Steve and Joe. And we'll hopefully come out of that meeting with something to forward to the town board. Great, thank you so much, Birch, on that. Okay, Steve Grote, privilege of the floor.
I said, I had two minor things,
Pardon?
I had two minor things, who might have participated, last December 3rd, a few weeks ago on that? Did it, you get your certificate of training yet from them?
Yeah.
I didn't, and I asked last week, I
Send
said,
an email.
Did you
I know,
email them to request it?
yep, I did.
I have to send them an email twice.
Oh, and I called them last week. I said, geez, I haven't got it. Well, she said, well, we had so many. She says, we have to do these manually and it takes us. She's just gonna take us a while.
They said there was 400 people in that.
Okay,
training.
that's what she told me,
Yeah, I
but
got mine.
you got all last
You got
week?
mine.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
well,
yours.
I'll call tomorrow.
Just call.
I've got the phone number. I've spoken to him several times. Oh,
Okay.
that's all I wanted to know. And then,
And the fact that you are using a different email, I don't know.
yeah,
Make
I'll
sure.
try and,
Well,
Yeah, check
have
your-
your son check the spam on his incoming email.
check his spam.
Check
Okay,
spam and make sure it didn't get
they-
directed to the spam.
check
That's
spam. Okay.
another, you know what that is? Not the edible spam.
And then lastly, one thing I did get from that, it was the third segment. And it was by this fellow Mark, I didn't get his last name, he was an attorney in the Glens Falls area. And apparently he's been doing this for quite some time. It was on planning and zoning decision-making. Legal requirements the same, minimum standards of behavior. And he brought up this when we might use our recuse option.
Mhm.
And I wasn't aware of this. I always thought you had to have some justification for using that. And this was they talked about it at length, and he said you do not have to state why you might be recusing yourself. It's not an obligation on your right. You can be asked, he said, but he said you are not required to state the reason you're recusing yourself. And I thought that was interesting. But he was very emphatic on that.
Yeah, he talked a lot about reasons why.
Yeah, did you hear? Okay, same thing? Yeah, and that's what I took away from that.
I think he said though, if you're in doubt, take the high road.
Right. because you don't want to jeopardize any of the actions. that-
Right.
Yeah.
But he also pointed out, just because you know a person doesn't necessarily mean you can't act on an application.
Right, and it doesn't pertain to who you might know in reference to an application, but there are other reasons you might recuse yourself.
Yes,
But I just thought, well, you don't have to say why. You have that option. No, I recuse. And that's just on, let's move on. Yeah, you don't have to say why. I just thought,
What was that, is on all applications, is that what?
yeah,
or does
yeah,
anybody-
you know, that ZBA members, planning board members might, you know, on an application.
The segment was all about like ethics.
Was it?
Yeah.
ethics and.
Yeah, the guy was good though, wasn't he?
Yeah,
He was, to
I
me,
thought
he
the
was the
whole
most
training was
interesting
really
of the
interesting.
four. I liked him. Yeah, he was, because it was just coming from all these years of experience and he just fed it out there. It wasn't prepared text. And it just seemed to roll and it was good.
That was a good training session and there's a couple of them that Paul took sounded like really good. One was on comprehensive plan. And those kind of, so some of the training webinars have been pretty useful, I think. So we're starting a new year. You're gonna need 4 hours. Take advantage early in the year. You won't have to be worried about it the last. last bit. Okay, anything else or privilege of the
On
floor?
that note, I'd like. to
Yeah,
make-
yeah, I got something, Ted.
Okay,
I
Steve
got
Smith.
something too.
Thank you, Steve.
On the seeker form for the Sullivans, you know, with all the vehicles up there, we don't know what the fluids are and everything like that. And I'm kind of concerned about that too. So that's it.
Okay,
That's a good point. It really is.
well, we're going to make sure you guys get a copy of our packets ahead of time. And things like that, you might have knowledge of that we don't on any application. Would be helpful. Let us
Would
know ahead
that-
of time.
Along with what Steve just said, with that, and we've never encountered this, and that we did go through the secret process, we made a determination. But then at a latter date, we're presented with more information on this application. Does that give us cause to go back and revisit the seeker?
Actually,
redo
no,
it?
because the application before us was moving property lines. Wasn't whether there was
Yeah.
vehicles up there. or
Right.
not.
It was a subdividing of the property, not
But again, I'll have to look at that. Is there,
subdividing itself is not causing any environmental impact.
right, but when you're looking at environmental impacts of the property, if in fact there's something with the property, and I don't know if there's one of those questions that really deals with that.
They don't apply.
No,
But the application is for moving property lines, not that there's cars there.
I know, but is there a segment in that
No.
seeker where
Well,
it talks to any potential hazardous type situations on the
No, it's
property?
the application. That's all we're looking at when we review the seeker. It's for moving the property.
yeah,
line.
right.
Moving a property line doesn't make a gas tank leak on the property or cause an environmental hazard from vehicles. It's the moving of property lines, that's all.
Okay.
But, you know, as you guys get applications, you know, you usually get them a couple of days at least before our meeting, you know, you see something, you know, take a look at them. Those are the
Absolutely.
kinds of things that would be perhaps informative,
Right.
although it's not specifically called out if it's a subdivision, it's just moving property line. Okay, anything else?
I was
Caitlin,
just
yes.
curious, when we were doing that training, the first segment really got me a little fired up about the comp plan. I was just wondering if you'd heard anything from the town board about that.
Nothing official.
Okay,
Christopher keeps bugging me in my ear about comp,
Oh, yeah,
plan
that's his
revision.
thing. That's his,
but I read in the code,
he likes it.
there has to be an official request from the town board to the planning board to initiate an update of the comprehensive plan. And so if and when that comes, then we'll have to, you know, begin to look at it, get a group together and get some, you know, planning on getting some help from county planning to do this whole update thing once it's started.
now there's a cost associated with that. Did we budget for that for 2023?
We did not. I talked to Christopher about that. He was kind of unsure. So we didn't specifically put money into the planning board budget for that.
Okay.
But he assured me that if it came up, that they would find the money for it somewhere.
Doesn't the town also have the option of going outside of the group here and getting outside help
Oh,
on
yeah.
this? Yeah, and that would
It's
come
really
into perhaps if it was budgeted
could
for,
hire-
but if
you could-
not,
You can hire
Then hire for you to do the whole thing and would require
Yeah.
any volunteers, but it's kind of nice, you know, if you can get local residents.
right,
Christopher, you know, keeps reminding me too, you know, the way he got involved in the town was
right.
he volunteered to be on a comp plan rewrite
Mhm.
project. And that got him interested and then he became planning board, now he's supervisor. So I like the idea of having residents involved.
It should
Because
definitely
they
be
have
resident
ideas. They
driven.
have ideas.
It affects the residents.
And, you know, we had costs associated with it last time because we had surveys, we had mailings, we had software we had to buy to analyze the survey results. But when I talked to Tom Harvey last year and a half ago, he kind of assured me that there was help available at the county level for all those kinds of things.
I think Linda handles that mostly.
Does she?
There is, and we used to carry over in our budget for a while when we were reviewing a comp plan too.
Yeah,
We'd have a, just a line item.
we don't have that line item anymore. We have a couple things, training, meeting, attorney's fees, code book updates. I don't know
So
what we have to
our
pay for that.
But our budget's pretty dwindled down then at this point.
Yeah, because we took that out and we took some, there was another fairly large budget item.
Gotcha.
Well, I'm definitely interested in being involved when
Great.
the opportunity comes up.
And it's a great opportunity for all of us, any of us that have a little time. Anything else for privilege of the floor?
I just have a
Oh.
FYI on the Crane owns property on County Road 36, 11 acres to the east.
Yes,
And Finger Lakes Land, there's some survey stakes that are up there. Finger Lakes Land Trust is under contract to purchase 3 acres. So I'm assuming she will have to come and get a subdivision on that.
she's gonna subdivide it, yeah, she will be.
So that should be seeing something.
Now, doesn't she have 2 parcels on the east side?
I think
It's a
she only
single
has-
parcel on the east
It's
side.
11 acres, single parcel. She's dividing out 3 acres. The Finger Lakes Land Trust.
Well, she's been here twice already. The first time she divided east and west.
Yep.
And then the second time she did the west side into 3 parcels and the east side into 2 parcels.
I
She
thought,
did?
Yep.
Okay.
And she's building on the one on the
all right, so maybe it's.
The
Sorry,
north-
it's subdivided.
northeast
Doesn't
side.
show up on Encore.
It doesn't.
No, neither does
I
the
can look
3 properties. Okay.
I can look at the survey.
I'm
map.
sure though,
Yeah,
it's just something I heard. And I didn't realize. we provided it.
Yeah, I do remember that. So
Okay.
it may
Cause
be
she's
our-
been twice, yeah.
So. Anything else?
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
All right, is there a second? Wait, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried. Have a night, Merry Christmas, everyone.
It's a good meeting.
This packet from Steve Smith, take turns looking it over. Feel free to take your time.
Good meeting, Todd. Very good.
We'll see you on the 21st.